AI can produce infinite content, but the question is whether any of it deserves to exist.
AI has its own challenges as well, and it has its own expense as well. So I think a lot should be considered before you make a huge pivot.
Jessica Goodrum of RivalMind explains where AI improves creative production and where human judgment still has to draw the line.
I think even if you're using the AI, you still have to understand how to present it to the world.
We also get into AI search, client interviews, changing SOPs, and the leadership required to build teams that keep producing through constant change.
I think video SOPs are probably the only way to go in the future. I would say SOPs are very difficult to keep up with. But it's important to have a process. It's important to have communications. And also thought leadership is more and more relevant, especially in a world full of a bunch of noise. Having someone who can speak clearly, I trust them. I'm going to go this direction because of that.
I'm Austin Willman, and this is eCoffee with Experts. Let's get into it. With AI in the creative field, now it seems like there's just infinite possibilities to create visual assets, content, like it's unlimited. But because of all that infinite ability, I would imagine that for you to guide your team to continue creating valuable content, you have to put some boundaries and restrictions on what is acceptable and what is not, what's just seen as AI slop.
100%.
How do you do that?
So that's something we're exploring. So in total transparency, since we're just talking about visuals, there are certain AI platforms that at times will nail it. You can feed it a concept, and we've all discovered that how you talk to AI matters, right, for the output. But there are times when it just cannot even get close, even if you feed it everything possible. So we walk a fine line. So we have an in-house design team. So all of our websites, our social media, our marketing materials, everything visual comes out from that design team. So obviously there is a little bit of that fear or internal threat that they're going to be outperformed by AI. What we've discovered, and to keep the guardrails on it, is quality in production and how that asset will be used. So for example, if we're generating an infographic, we need to make sure that the elements in the graphic are identifiable by a search engine, right? Trying to find it, let alone any type of alt text that you add to it. But one of the things that we do to manage the output is for our team is to really understand branding and to ensure that we have the branding established for our clients, both internally if we have different teams working on the material. So truthfully, we don't use a lot of AI for graphics. We may design blogs where we generate an AI asset to be embedded in that blog to support the message. But in most cases, that is our design team doing the work because we haven't seen 100% success consistently with some of those more minor assets.
Well, it's interesting that the visual asset is now more important to brand because algorithms can, like LLMs can look at an image, identify what it is. So if you have an image generator that creates an image of like some wispy stuff and it's like it's hard to grasp what it is, and it's not an exact logo, I mean, if you're looking across name, address, phone number, like NAP, across SEO, which is super important to have alignment around there. That's why we do a lot of citations and directory listings. Suddenly you have a brand logo, and then you have something that's supposed to align with the brand, but it's just kind of like, I don't know, it looks like a, Wingardium Leviosa just, on the image. It doesn't make any sense. So that's what I think you're saying, right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So really what we're using AI for our visual assets is ideation. So, there's a lot of output from the design department. And as you likely know yourself, a creative, you can't always produce. You can't always just pull these concepts out of the air. Eventually your creative meter runs low, right? And so we definitely at times use like external teams. So SEO team, content team, social media team might use AI to support the vision that they're trying to achieve. And then we let the design team do it in the client's brand. So you certainly can make visual edits within the AI tool that you're using and make those requests. But like you said, they're still very imperfect. So logos, even if you were to provide the accurate asset, it doesn't necessarily interpret it correctly. So what I would say is don't throw your design team out yet, because AI has its own challenges as well, and it has its own expense as well. So I think a lot should be considered before you make a huge pivot.
Yeah. And there is, I mean, you were just barely starting to say it, but it has its own expense as well. And there's this kind of new subset of people on social media talking about token maxing and like AI maxing, which is basically like, how much can we use AI? And that's kind of like a flex. I mean, Jason Huang of NVIDIA was even like, if I hire a 200,000 engineer, and at the end of the year we don't have $500,000 worth of token expense, like I don't know what that engineer is doing all day. So there is this aspect of how much can we use AI, but you're saying we don't use it just for the sake of using it. It has to be strategic.
I absolutely. And maybe a little later we're going to touch on this when it comes to content. There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of excitement around AI. And I see out in the world a lot of copy and pasting happening. And for someone who works in the field and industry that we do, it's very easy to identify that. And it's deeply unattractive. So I think even if you're using the AI, you still have to understand how to present it to the world. And then just, if I could just say, we obviously don't want to spend time on this, but the environmental implications of data centers and AI, we need to introduce technology in a really considerable manner for the sake of our Earth and humanity. So excellent tool, but we should absolutely still be the ones fully in charge of what it does for us.
Totally. Yeah. And then you were just saying we have, let's say, the creative team plus the SEO team plus maybe the PPC team and the email marketing team.
Yes.
They cross-pollinate ideas to each other to then help the design team, to help the brand team, the creative team. Can you go a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there may be examples where, the SEO strategist has a competitor. Let's talk about infographics, right? So let's say SEO strategist has a competitor in mind. They know the client best. So not all of the design team necessarily knows the client's identity, because once a website's produced, it's handed off to our teams and we could run with that client for years. And so we know them very well, their tone, their voice, their expectations, their desires, what their current goals are, right? So there might be the case where AI is used, whether it's for a visual concept or for the content itself, used to produce a idea, a vision that the design team can then run with and make it best in the brand's image. So that would be the use case for that, to essentially set the vision. Otherwise, and then what that does is that reduces the time cost for the design team and what they're spending on having to ideate for themselves or to create out of thin air. It sets the tone and the vision. They can get in, they can get it done, and kind of send it on its way.
You have moved from managing individual projects into creative leadership, broader marketing direction, and then now content marketing leadership. What do you think changed the most when your responsibility shifted from delivering good work to then building a department that's capable of delivering good work consistently?
Yeah. I mean, I love questions like this because I love good leadership. I think that under good leadership, so much can thrive. And so I would say one of the biggest aspects that changed was obviously shifting to build into a team that could produce the quality that you're looking for, as well as do it in an efficient manner, which means building in processes or refining processes or finding issues that maybe the way you were doing it didn't work and you discover something new. So being willing to like pivot or be pliable is super important. So I guess the biggest challenge or shift for me was understanding that I now had the opportunity to work with a really good team. I have a really good team, and that makes a huge difference. So shout out to team. I
Yeah.
can't speak highly enough, yeah, of how important it is to
Yeah.
just have a great team that's willing to make changes and work together and really strive for the best outcome for the company, for the client, for our own team, our own mental health, all of that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But processes are changing so fast. Like, my very basic question is, how, like, are SOPs even relevant anymore? Or like, what, once you
Jeez.
write a process, like, it's going to
Yeah.
change relatively quickly. How do you handle that?
Yeah. So that is interesting because SOPs are always on our agenda. So we write
Mm,
them and then we have to
mhm.
change it. And then what happens is they get pushed to the wayside, especially if you have obviously your priorities are producing for your clients. But
Yeah.
I think video SOPs are probably the only way to go in the future
Mm,
because it's my interpretation. And hopefully you feel the same as a podcast, a host is that it's easy to, so to say, easy to turn on the camera and film
mhm.
the step-by-step process that you do day in and day out, or especially when you have a change to that, it's more difficult to like put it in and document it word for word, let alone the way that different brain types, so neurodivergent, neurotypical, interpret
Yeah.
the information versus a video, stop, start, go back. So I would say SOPs are very difficult to keep up with.
Yeah.
But it's important to have a process. It's important to have communication. So it's a challenging issue that we have at our own business.
Yeah, totally. And you're not alone in that. I can't remember, some war general in the US said the best plan is to have one. And I think that's kind of applies to SOPs too. It's like, well, the best process is that we have a process in general. Now, if there are
Yes.
small tweaks that need to happen, we'll work with those on the fly. And likely the team is not like 500 people, and we're
Hmm.
not like, spinning new employees in every time and need some sort of a standardized process. So I would imagine it's pretty flexible. But the next step to that is, if we do have a documented SOP, now we can start to apply AI to the workflows to take care of the stuff that's non creative and like
Yes.
stuff that we don't want to do as humans, right? So operationally, where are you fitting in AI into your production workflow?
That is interesting because slowly. So obviously we have project management systems that we work with. I can mention the name
Yeah,
Asana.
yeah, please.
And so there are integrations. Asana has some AI, but the trick, like everyone else, is there's so many tokens you get with it, right?
Mm,
And so if you've set up rules or certain integrations and you run out, what do you do for the rest of the month? You've become reliant
yeah.
on that rule. So we're at the beginning stages of determining how do you use AI to help support deliverables. So our team does a pretty good job when it comes to like content deliverables and using AI to determine deliverable dates and getting those submitted based off
Hmm.
of workflows that can be managed. But it's an area that needs to be explored more. That's a very operational area. And because with us, digital marketing flows, even the incoming of new clients, I mean, sometimes we'll have months where there's just this huge push. And
Mm,
so your eyes and your attention drifts away from process and operations, which is interesting because you'd want it to be supported more during those more challenging times, but your focus and energy can only go so many places. So
yeah.
it's I don't have any like brilliant tips or tricks. I think you'd have to find out per organization, but I think the baseline is just having a really excellent project management system and a team that communicates and
Mm.
cross department strong communication.
Hey, we hope you're enjoying the coffee and the conversation so far. This show is powered by Digital Web Solutions, and if you've ever wondered how the biggest brands actually build authority, this is it. DWS has a massive network of over 250,000 publishers, real sites that help you rank on Google, and more importantly, stay visible in AI search. It's the heavy lifting most teams just can't do on their own. As a thank you for listening, they're offering an exclusive free strategy call just for our eCoffee listeners. It's a great way to map out your authority plan for 2026. Just click the link below to book yours and see how they can help scale your brand. All right, now let's get back to the show. Cross-department strong communication. Asana obviously really helps with that, I would imagine, as long as everybody's on it, right? I've
Yes.
seen
Yes.
I've seen teams where it's like just one team, like just the, I don't know, product team or just the marketing team is on a platform, and then everything has to be duplicated into other platforms because not everybody's on the same ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that is, that's a challenge that some people have. I don't know about everybody. But let's
Yes.
let's shift into SEO a little bit more and how content affects visibility and discoverability and you know driving business results. The bottom line, getting people to transact. Right now, Google's current guidance is that AI overviews and AI mode, they still rely on the same foundational SEO practices with no real special, like, I guess, AI schema or technical shortcuts required. So if the foundation remains the same in SEO, where does the first meaningful change need to happen inside of a marketing department?
Okay. I love that. I have great tips for that. So I also love that SEO, the foundation is still really good SEO, not keyword stuffing, just really solid language. I don't think that a lot of times when our clients come on board, they understand how important content is.
Mhm.
Content really is king when it comes to having fresh content on the pages that are relevant for your users, let alone, search engines find attractive. But the few things that we've identified is outside of having good SEO is location pages. So we could talk a little bit about strategy shifts there, answering the questions as soon as possible within whether it's a blog, a service page, a location page itself. There's a getting to the matter as quickly as possible. Sometimes you can do that with key insights, FAQs, a bulleted list, and then kind of expand on the rest of the story.
Hmm.
Another thing is we've been experimenting with LLM pages. So there's a page you can't access like a average user can't access this page. That's the page on the website that search engines can crawl where it talks about all the business information. It's like you know, words on a page, nothing that's pretty to the eye, information about that business, who they are, what they represent, what their specialties are, all on one page.
Hmm.
And so we've seen that bring some success. The location pages, do you want me to like jump into that a little bit about how
Yeah,
we've
sure.
shifted? Okay.
I just have a question. When you said answer the questions like as soon as possible, you mean like at the top of the content, right? You
Yes.
mentioned bulleted lists, FAQs, which are traditionally at the bottom. I would imagine, well, I don't know, maybe you push them up to the top. That's what you're talking about though, like earlier in the content, like get to the point quick and then expand.
Yes. So
Yeah.
100% in addition to just because a lot of times it can be difficult to start a blog with a bulleted list, right?
Yeah.
Or key insights. When you first introduce each section, so you have new H2s throughout, it would be to maybe you open with, okay, it depends per industry, right? So if it's something that's like some type of women's health resource, maybe you open with something a little more in touch so that reader feels
Hmm.
connected to the material. And
Mhm.
then you start to introduce the answer to that question. And then you can carry on the story a little further. So the attention span is a little more limited these days. And
Mm.
so they don't want a 3-paragraph story before you give them the answer.
Mhm.
But that's from the user perspective. From the search engine, it's still a little bit tricky. It seems to be as long as you are answering the question and that people find that relevant, then obviously you are higher on the search results list.
Hmm.
But those are a few of the things that we've done to make our clients more appealing to AI overview, et cetera.
I have a question on that because Google is also looking for non-commodity content, same thing with LLMs, which means, in-person POV or like describing something where physics come into play because like humans and science and stuff, where you have a worldview that's different from other people. And in order to describe that worldview, typically you will need more context to explain why your view is separate in answering a question than your competitor. So how do you balance like the length, the depth, the nuance of a unique point of view with the brevity that's required to, I guess, capture the attention of an algorithm? It
Yeah.
seems tough.
Awesome question, because we have to personally produce an assortment. So we've been doing guides lately or indexable glossary term pages. Again, it depends on the industry of the client that we're serving. So, and also thought leadership is more and more relevant, especially in a world full of a bunch of noise. Having someone who can speak clearly and that you're like, I trust them, I'm going to go this direction because of that is important. That's harder to do unless you do have a strong voice within your organization that can produce or support that content if someone else is writing it. So some of the ways that we have covered that is just with those different pieces. So expanding on how we talk on location pages, producing those guides, getting interviews with our clients. And so not interviews where the video shows up on the blog or the service page, but extracting any niche information that we can get from an interview rather than producing in their tone and having them look at a document and saying, does this work? And then, giving thumbs up or providing revisions. So we've started to discover that interviews with clients help us understand their voice and their perspective and allow us to write or think and then write within it.
And then it's part of your job as the content people that a brand would hire. It's part of your job to do the research and understand the framing of the questions that their audience is looking for. So, being a podcast host, that is part of the challenge, is understanding how do I extract what's good from the guest, but also how do I understand what the podcast audience wants to listen to, and how do I connect those dots? It seems like there's kind of like a new skill that's emerging or developing, which has it has a leg in SEO and the research foundations and the understanding of the ICP and the audience, but it also has a leg in content creation and how to, I guess a third leg where you have to kind of be like a host and
Yes.
work with them, right? Ask pointed questions, but at the same time, don't make them mad.
Yes. I think and that's another thing I would say at our organization where we excel and why a lot of businesses do work with us, because you have that personal touch, but we also try to present them in that way in anything that we produce for them. I would say that if there was a super high tech company that was looking for digital marketing services, well, I wouldn't say we couldn't support them. I think it would be more challenging. And the reason that clients come to us is because they still realize they're people working with people. So finding that gap or the bridge for that gap between the warmth of that connection, the voice of authority, we aren't here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do, but here's what we know. And if you like it, come with us type of journey. It's difficult and it takes time to research, as you mentioned, and understand a client's identity and brand. We have clients sometimes that come to us that don't even understand their own brand or their voice and tone. And we discover it for them and we say, hey, this is who we think you are. So that's a fun kind of reversal, but it still takes time and the steps and the reps, if you want to say, to get there.
Yeah. A quick question on that. It's not on our sheet. Do you charge extra for that? Like, hey, we're going to do kind of like this brand discovery and we're going to help you write your brand voice and like define your unique angle and all of that. Is that like a separate piece or is it kind of included in the onboarding?
It's a part of the package. It's definitely included in the onboarding, like a creative brief on who we believe you are. Tell us where we're wrong so we can right the ship. But what we also offer, it's far and fewer because it does get expensive, is like entire content strategies outside of just content that goes on a website. So we create ideas, and whether it's, ideas for videos or interviews that they should do with their own clients. And then we put together a whole annual or quarterly strategy and work on those materials so they can have a little more of like that cross-channel marketing efforts so that they can share their voice in a similar way across different platforms. That would be an extra charge. But as far as them telling us who we are, we telling them who we think they are and creating all of that whole vision, that's just a part of the package.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I would imagine, again, depending on the industry, you're working with a general contractor or a roofing company, and you're like, "What's your brand voice?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?"
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like, our logo is like an armadillo, and armadillos don't speak English. They don't have a voice. Jessica, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I would
Yes.
imagine that there is an aspect where you bring that out and help them define it. Uh, as we kind of round out or think about closing out the conversation, I'm curious in your role right now, like, what is your favorite part of the job?
Ooh, definitely the team. I love improving the way that the teams communicate internally in the most efficient manner, putting everyone on the same page. I love the cross department communication, bringing that into alignment, bringing leaders into alignment. So that we can share the same vision. I also, something I learned, because I served in the military and so have a little bit of a militant background in me. And so something that I've learned over the years is to really, because it's a desire and I've cultivated it, is to make sure I'm not a diminishing leader. So essentially inspire others to, and just definitely like a serving leader, right? So inspire others to do the thinking as well, to come with the ideas. In order to do that, you have to make sure you create safety. And there's an element with that where in the end, if you are the one sitting in the seat with more experience, you might have to say no, or, hey, let's go this different direction. It doesn't mean that everything's always sunshine and roses, but where you can cultivate an environment where your team or other departments feel safe, where you can collaborate. Because I feel like when you can do that, you can really get the egos out of the way and produce really cool stuff.
Mm,
So my favorite part of the job really is the people, and having been given the opportunities over the years to be a part of leadership and help cultivate people, and for them to even find their own identity, their own professionalism, or their own leadership qualities, and that can serve them however they want, whether they stay at an organization or they move on, or however they move on through life. I think that's probably my favorite part.
I love it. I mean, great leaders develop leaders that's
Hopefully,
how I've seen
yes.
it, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the that's the hope, that's the desire. You said something really interesting. I want to reflect it back to you. I didn't get it perfect, but you said something like, I have an interest in this and therefore I've developed it or I've
Yes.
cultivated it. It was something really
Yes.
interesting where you're like, I have this natural predisposition toward one thing, and because it's natural for me, I have therefore leaned into it.
Yeah.
Was that intentional that you said that way?
Yeah. And I think you're talking about when I'm saying to be not a diminishing leader. So a lot of times in the military, like there's not a lot of space for opinions. When there's an order to be delivered
Mm,
on, you're not like, well, you know what? I don't feel we
yeah.
should do that. There's no space for that. So what I was saying is that I came with some of that. And so I naturally actually apply some of that to my own life. So what I've
Mm,
had to learn and lean into is to ensure that I'm not diminishing through my leadership, especially if you have a stronger voice, or if you're the kind of person that's willing to put up a fight to do the right thing. You have to be mindful that there are still other voices in the room. And even if their voice really isn't the direction you're headed, just to make sure that you're not making them feel small. It's
mm,
because you want the future them to come out and keep bringing things to the table. And so I leaned into ensuring that I did not become a diminishing leader.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
There's this really interesting team dynamic where it's hard to see, but once you see it, you'll be like, oh man, I can't unsee that. Where depending on the kind of personality type of the team overall as an average, let's think about an engineering team, right? You can picture who that group of people, that archetype might be, versus a sales team,
Yeah.
have the archetype of who that is in general, right? And then you see the leaders of each of those teams. You would imagine, well, this is like the super version of that, right? The sales leader, we would imagine, is like the apex predator, is like, the super outgoing one. And the engineering person is like borderline, or very much so on the autism spectrum and like very introverted. You know what I mean? And like
I know what you're
wicked
saying.
smart.
Yeah.
But the research doesn't show that that's what makes a great team dynamic. It's actually the opposite, right? The one who leads a banging sales team is typically the more reserved person that doesn't speak much, lets the other people speak. And then the person who's like crushing it in engineering is someone like Elon Musk, who's very outgoing and flamboyant and whatever.
Yeah.
How do you see your dynamic with your team and your leadership position?
I guess I wish they could speak to that, you know? I feel like they would provide more revelation than I
Sure.
would. I would say so. I'm actually a playful person too. So I do like a lot of funny stuff comes out of my mouth at work, because I'm a real life person out here,
Mm.
making my way through life as well. So I think that, I guess the fact that I have a personality, pretty vibrant, but I also know where to draw the line. It's just like, I guess my own expansiveness helps me relate to or build into different personality types. Even if I don't walk in their shoes, I can walk beside them, I guess is a way to say it.
Yeah.
I guess that's how I would say I support that in my own makeup, how I
Yeah.
exist. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that could be a whole separate podcast on leadership development and
Sure.
how to lead a team and everything like that. So, man, that would actually be super interesting, Jessica. Maybe we'll have to schedule another podcast or something like that.
I love it.
Is there
Again, I
anything
want to
we
say
haven't?
one thing.
Yeah,
This
I was
one
just
thing,
going to
because what you
ask.
said there is interesting that something came up where you were saying, oh, you would anticipate, the leader over an engineering team versus a leader over a sales team and what those dynamics look like. What I have found is, like, you can have that person that's the visionary. They aren't necessarily the best leader. So even though they're like generating the ideas that everyone's eyes on them, they aren't necessarily the one to perform it. And what I've found within my own team is I'm working on another transition, but there's a team member who is baseline steady, consistent, always performs what that person say they will do. Those very qualities, even though they don't read as dynamic as another leader, those very qualities are the reason that I want to put them in a different seat, more leadership role, is because you need someone sometimes to just hold things down, just hold shit down, and so you just got to figure out where that leader should be. Right person, right seat.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. Going back to EOS.
Yeah.
That is, man, that's fantastic. It's almost like I think of movie stars, I guess. The celebrities who are like a little bit more, they're kind of just like these, I don't know. I don't know any movie stars, by the way. So
Sure.
maybe I have the totally wrong interpretation, but you'll see like, Justin Bieber or, I don't know, Leo DiCaprio or someone who's just like wild and out in the Hollywood Hills partying and, swerving in their Lamborghini, but they make these incredible assets, incredible movies or music that everybody loves, but you're not going to hire that person to like do the same thing every day.
No,
Absolutely not. So it's like,
no.
yeah, right person on the bus, right right seat on the bus. Very important.
Yep. You want a certain kind of person driving, and then a certain kind of person saying, here's the map of where we're going, because it's going to be the most adventurous, intriguing, trip or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And you
That's
got to
what
have
it
someone
takes in
hanging
a
out the
team.
window.
Yeah, you gotta have someone hang out the window. You gotta have the team cheerleader, personality hire. That's what I think makes the best team, is just figuring out how to work all those elements together, elements being people, and just have a good time while doing it too.
Yeah. As AI takes over more and more of our jobs, that will become more and more important. Like getting the right people in your crew, in your circle, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Jessica, where can we find more about Rival Mind, and how do we reach you if we want to engage with you personally?
Yeah, Rival Mind. So it's www.rivalmind.com. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram. We're on all the social channels. We're on YouTube if you want to check out some of our podcasts on some of our own internal workings. And then for myself, you can find me on LinkedIn at Jessica Goodrum. And good luck finding the right one. I'm not going to make it that easy. So yeah, that's where I am. And I'm obviously at Rival Mind.
Cool. Well, thank you for being here and bringing your experience. I love how we kind of took this conversation through operations, through creatives, through AI, and landed on team and personal kind of development. That just shows like the range of a high quality leader can go down all these paths and still stick the landing. So thanks for being a great guest.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's very kind.
Cheers.
Cool. Thanks.